Basic operations with selection tools. Hi guys, last time we learned how to select oval and rectangle areas, and today we will continue to get acquainted with this group of selection tools and talk about single selection tools. So, single selection tools. It is located in the same place as the rectangle and elliptical selection tools. Let's choose a raw selection tool. So, what is it? When using this type of selection, either a horizontal or vertical line of 1 pixel is selected. For example, I click on an image somewhere, and I have a line selected, which in fact is the selection area. If you have an image of a large enough size, then until you zoom it in, you will not see this line. And let's see now what can be done with it, how it can be useful to us. In fact, this tool is not used very often, and we will use it to create such strips by creating a stroke. But first, let's create a new layer. We need to do this so that we can move the stripes that we'll create as we want. And if we create them directly on the background layer, then they will be part of the background image, and we will not be able to edit them or apply layer styles to them. So we create a new layer. Now we'll continue to work with a selected area on this active layer. We'll right click and select stroke. The same could be done for the edit menu. Edit stroke. And here we set the color of our stroke, and it's white. Our default color corresponds to the foreground color, and the layout is the same as in the layer styles. Everything is the same, and the rest of the settings I think are already clear to you too. Let's set the white color. You could just type 255, 255 and 255 as the RGB value. Okay, we leave a width of 30 pixels and we get such a white stripe, which we have on a new layer, and we can move it as we want. Look, if the width of a photo would be wider, then the strip would be wider. Well, the column line selection works in exactly the same way. Let's use it. In the same way, I click in an empty space and create a vertical line, a new layer. Here it is, and in the same way, click the right mouse button, stroke, and set the same values. And now I will apply layer styles to these two stripes. This is already familiar to you. Therefore, I will not dwell on this for a long time. We apply a shadow like this. We copy the second layer. Press Alt and Ctrl. If you have two shadows moving onto layers at once when adjusting, then in this case, when applying the layer styles, you need to put a check mark near the global light and practice the rectangular selection tool a little bit. Go to the background. It should be activated. Then we take the rectangular tool and draw such an area on the background layer. And now, when pressing Ctrl plus J, we don't copy the entire background layer, but only the selected area. This, in general, applies to any selected areas, not just rectangular. So, it is selected. We apply the multiply mode. We return to the background layer again. We draw the same area again, but this time vertical. Press Ctrl plus J again, and apply multiply again. And we have finished this exercise. And we are moving on to the next exercise, by the example of which I want to show you how the inversion of the selected area works. It works for any selected areas. We will practice it on the example of an elliptical selection tool. But first, let's prepare our images a little. We'll unlock the background layer, double-click on it, and create a new white layer below it. Click the icon of the new layer, hold down Ctrl, and fill this new layer with white. I remind you that in order to set the black and white colors, you need to press D, and in order to swap them, press X. So, fill in the white color. So, take a look. Here, if you turn off the eye icon, you can see the white layer. And now we start drawing the selected area. I set the feathering to 50 pixels and start drawing. Well, something like that, for example. And look, now I have actually selected what is inside this selected area, inside this oval. This can be easily understood if you fill in this area. Stay on the layer on which we selected it all and press Alt plus Backspace. The area that is inside is filled in. But what if we need to fill the area which is located outside? Or delete this area? We can use the selection inversion. To do this, we go to the Select menu and choose Inverse, or press Shift plus Ctrl plus I. And so I did it all. And look how my selected area has changed. Namely, I now have marching ants on the edge of the image. This just means that what is outside of our oval is selected, and we can make sure by filling it again. That's what we get in this case. The fact is that this way of creation of a vignette is not very productive, because I can't work with the image of the girl in any way now. All my editing capabilities are actually reduced to zero. So I'm going back and I'm going to recreate the selected area, just in new, because I have decided to create it with a large value of 100 pixels. So, draw the selected area. I remind you that in order to edit it somehow, we need to select and transform the selected area. And don't confuse this with a free transform, invoked by Ctrl+T, which we use for editing objects, not selected areas. And look, my overall frame departs a little from the selected area. This is exactly deferring the 100 pixels that we set. Let's put it like this. I remind you that in order to somehow edit the dimensions without preserving the proportions, you need to hold down Shift. And now I'll press Delete, and I will delete what is beyond the oval. Take a look at what we have got. This can be seen by the layer of icons. Let's cancel the selection with Ctrl+D. And due to the fact that I made this layer and the girl is on a new layer, we can move it as we want, and we can reduce it. I press Ctrl+T, for example, like this, and that's what we ended up with. Such a vignette as in all photos. Here is the result. I hope you'll use this feature because it's very useful and very common. We'll start the next exercise in this lesson and continue on the next one, because for its final completion we'll need another additional tool, which we'll study next time. But let's get started. The first thing I want to show you in this exercise is that if you hold down Ctrl and click on the icon of the layer, then everything on this layer will be selected. So I did it, and you see there are marching ants along the edge of this image with a girl. And now I want to make a stroke, but shift it to the center of the image. Let's use the eyedropper tool to select color, and we'll create a new layer on which our stroke will be created. We do this so that it would be convenient for us to edit it later. I created a new layer, and now we go to the selected menu and choose Modify. And here among the settings we choose Contract. In this case our stroke will shift to the center, and if we choose Expand, then on the contrary it will shift to the edges of our image. So choose Contract, set 100 pixels. The selected area is shifted to the center. Next, we go to the Edit menu, select Stroke. We set 30 pixels. We can choose the location that will be more preferable to us and the color that we need. And click OK. And now we have a stroke. Delete the selection with Ctrl+D. And how the creation of a stroke on a new layer works? Well, we have done the Layer Styles application before. At this time, we'll just delete a part of this frame that we created. Let's take the rectangular selection tool, and we'll draw something like this on the layer with the frame, and just click Delete and remove the detachment. That's actually all for today. In the next lesson, we'll continue to study the operations that we can do with selected areas, and edit another element to complete the work on this image. Let's move on to the homework. Today we'll have 3 exercises. The first exercise with single selection tools. The second exercise will be related to the inversion of the selection. And the third exercise will be devoted to contraction and expansion of the selected area with the help of a stroke. And that's it for today. It was Peter Romanov and AIM School. See you next time.